Hi, my name is Kelly Wilbur, and I am one Catholic counselor. How many of us have double-checked to make sure a door was locked or a curling iron was unplugged? And how many of us have gone back once, twice, or even 3 times to satisfy a psychological need to be sure? While these behaviors don't necessarily demonstrate obsessive-compulsive disorder or OCD, they do represent some level of obsessing on a thought or being compelled to perform an action. In this segment, I'd like to explore the psychology underlying these behaviors by using an extreme example. Billionaire Howard Hughes is played by Leonardo DiCaprio in Martin Scorsese's 2004 biopic, The Aviator. The development of obsessions and compulsions can be explored from a variety of angles. You can investigate the biological sources, for instance, a person's genetic makeup or their brain chemistry. Or you can use a cognitive behavioral approach to look in real time at the relationships between a person's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And both of these approaches are completely valid. But today I'd like to take the psychodynamic approach and explore the psychological mechanisms that underlie obsessive and compulsive behaviors. In other words, I want to get inside the head and see exactly what's going on in there. Obsessions and compulsions are really about one thing: control. According to the Psychodynamic Diagnostic Manual, an obsessive-compulsive personality possesses a central belief about the self, that most feelings are dangerous and must be controlled. And to protect oneself against these dangerous feelings, the obsessive-compulsive personality uses an array of psychological defenses. Many of these defenses are things we can see from the outside, for instance, compulsive hand-washing. But first, let's start with the things we cannot see, the internal fear of feelings, and thus the psychological need to control them. In my video, Politics in Your Mom, I talked about a developmental stage all infants go through called the paranoid schizoid position. This is where an infant's mind is not developed enough to accept that a single mom can provide both love and frustration. Thus, the infant mentally splits mom into a separate good mom and bad mom. This protects the good mom from all the negative thoughts and feelings the infant has toward the bad mom. Now, this is necessary because the infant at this stage also can't differentiate between feelings, thoughts, and actions. The infant is on sort of a power trip and feels a sense of omnipotent control. It seems to the infant that when it feels something or thinks something, that something happens. And that something may be the destruction of mom by the infant's frustration. And we reinforce this sense of power in the infant all the time. Think about how quickly parents scramble to pacify a baby when it's crying. From the baby's perspective, it seems like its wish is the universe's command. Now, most of us grow out of using splitting and omnipotent control, eventually assuming a more realistic and healthy vision of the world. However, obsessive-compulsive personalities carry on echoes of this phase well into adulthood. They still experience their feelings as something extremely powerful and dangerous, and there are 2 ways to deal with that: repress the dangerous feelings or find some way to ignore them. Obsessives do the former, while compulsives do the latter. Howard Hughes was an example of someone who had both obsessions and compulsions, and it is this combination that we call obsessive-compulsive disorder or OCD. Let's see how both these dynamics play out in the film. From the obsessive side, Howard has repressed his powerful, out-of-control, and dangerous feelings, leaving only a tightly controlled intellect. Obsessives shut off feelings using a defense called isolation of affect. I challenge you to go through the film and find a scene where Howard expresses any emotion. The only exception you'll find is anger, usually the righteous variety. This is because anger gives Howard a sense of more control. This dynamic has an interesting effect on the decision-making process. When obsessing, Howard's continual focus on the tiniest of details allows him to avoid the responsibility of making any decisions. For example, allowing production of his film to drag on for years, or slowing down the manufacturing of an airplane because he can't decide which steering wheel it should have. Here we can imagine Howard as that omnipotently controlling infant, fearing that his dangerously powerful feelings might make something bad happen. Howard subconsciously responds to this danger by repressing those feelings, shifting toward an obsession on thoughts, and ultimately making no decisions at all. The compulsive side of Howard is paradoxically the opposite. Instead of repressing feelings, Howard ignores them by blindly rushing past them and into compulsive decisions. We see this when he commits to multi-million-dollar business deals without taking any time to think things through.
Howard, hold on. Are you sure? You want to think about it for 5 minutes?
Hell, Jack, I got a tiger by the tail here. I ain't gonna let it go.
Now, why is repressing an uncomfortable feeling a bad thing? In her book, Psychoanalytic Diagnosis, Nancy McWilliams talks of patients asking, what good will it do to feel that? Her response is, harm is being done in not feeling it. She continues that emotions make one feel alive, energized, and fully human, even if they express attitudes that the patient has come to see as not very nice. But there's an even more practical concern here. Repressed feelings have a tendency to find their way back into the conscious mind, often in very alien and disturbing ways. This reemergence of repressed feelings is the source of what we call intrusive thoughts. Examples of these are Howard's concerns that his food or his hands are contaminated, and our own concerns that a door is left unlocked or a curling iron is left plugged in. To relieve the anxiety caused by these intrusive thoughts, we may lean on a psychological defense called undoing. With undoing, a person feels compelled to perform some repetitive act in a symbolic effort to undo the source of anxiety. These compulsions come in many forms, including the repeating of certain phrases.
Show me all the blueprints.
All right.
Blueprints. Yeah, blueprints. I'm serious now. Show me all the blueprints. 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 Show me all the blueprints.
And of course, we have the classic undoing of compulsive hand washing. In this case, the hand washing is symbolically connected to Howard's intrusive thoughts of contamination, which itself is a fear of feeling weak or out of control. Having a personality style that is somewhat obsessive or compulsive is not a problem in itself and can often be adaptive. McWilliams gives the example of a professor of philosophy as a possible obsessive style and carpenters and accountants as examples of compulsive styles. It's only when thinking and doing are used to eliminate emotions that there should be cause for concern. And there are many different treatment approaches for OCD, including focuses on neurobiology, cognition, and behavior. The psychodynamic approach I've been talking about here seeks to help people find and then safely express the feelings they have spent so much effort in avoiding. And as strange as it might sound, this often involves the patient openly expressing great anger at the therapist. As a competent therapist survives this assault, the patient's subconscious belief in his or her own omnipotence fades, and along with it the splitting defenses that were used to protect the good parent from destruction. Ultimately, the patient no longer experiences their emotions as dangerous, and those feelings can then be reintegrated with their corresponding thoughts. I hope this video has been helpful in exploring the underlying psychology of obsessions and compulsions. If you tend to avoid emotion, obsess over the tiniest of details, rush into action without thinking, have disturbing and intrusive thoughts, or spend way too much time double-checking things, know that you aren't alone. And if these experiences are disrupting your life or causing you distress, find a good counselor who can help. Many people have walked the same path as you and have come out the other side. I know. I was one of them.